know how to censor myself. I don't know.
Oh, well, that's the whole point of the podcast, is censor yourself as little as possible.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So my little like heroes or people that I look up to, what I like about podcasts in general is that it's the guys hiding in their basement or in their garage, and the things they would say there that you won't say anywhere else. That's
Right.
kind of, and that's the ones that I love are a lot of that. And there's something about podcasts that you can get away with saying things you can't get away with saying anywhere else. I don't know what
Yeah.
it is.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I
Maybe.
think I think because they're so long, a lot of people's not going to sit there and listen to a hour, 2 hour long audio only something. So anyway,
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
cool. So all right, welcome to Dream Talking, Sena.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, this is something we've wanted to do since I gave you a ride to the coffee house.
Right. When was
Yes,
that? I don't remember.
before the quarantine. Seems like a lifetime ago.
Uh-huh.
And yeah, I've discovered pretty quickly that your thoughts on things and your experience with how you came to non-duality was very cool and interesting, and would be fun to explore for me, for the Dream Talking community. So
Thank you.
yeah, right on. And I was joking earlier with one of my friends that this is becoming more and more the Paul Hederman club, fan club podcast.
That's a good title for it.
Yeah, yeah, it damn near is. I don't mean to bring him up constantly, but I do. And a good majority of the people on the podcast are part of the Sangha, part of the group that comes to meetings regularly. So it's going to be a whole lot of Paul, probably, if I had to guess today. But we will get into you. And I like the idea. So we've never really had too long of a conversation together. So I can kind of get to know you a little bit in your story, what brought you to this, along with the listeners, which is always fun for me. So let's start at the beginning. I know you grew up in, I hope I don't get this wrong, Fiji?
Yes.
Yes, Fiji. Right on. Cool. So let's talk about that. I've never been there. I as we've talked about, I love island culture and life. I almost moved to Hawaii, came very close to moving to Hawaii. I always get along with people at work that are Samoan and Fijian and Hawaiian and all that. So let's get into what that was like growing up in Fiji.
Okay. Yeah. Fiji. Well, yeah, I was born in Fiji and born and raised, and it is the island life, It's funny to think about it because, for a very long time, I've had a lot of resentments about the way I was brought up and all.
Interesting. Okay. We can get into it if you're willing. That's a part of
Not
the show.
really.
Yeah.
Not really.
Not worth hashing up.
Yeah. No, it's, and so just this past few years, I've been able to see the good things about being brought up in Fiji, Yeah, I don't know really what to say about that. It was.
Well, I love that. Just again, first mention of Paul. I love how he talks about, when you hit rock bottom in alcoholism, that it's the worst day of your life usually, and then a couple years later you see it as the best day, right? Because that was the day that kind of woke you up. So there's a word for it, recontextualizing, or basically you're giving new meaning to things that happened in the past. So that's cool to hear that maybe at one point you held your similar story here, not who knows to what degree, but I held a lot of resentments and ideas about why my childhood was fucked up. And then over time, I'm seeing all the things that I was so sure were 100% bad. I see the good in it more and more.
Yeah.
And the value that I got out of certain things,
Yeah, and like questioning even like my memory of it and whether my perspective was right or wrong,
Yes,
I mean, it's
yes.
just like a whole nother world to look at.
Totally. A new thing I've been saying is don't trust your memory. so
Yes.
much because be very suspicious of any ideas you have in your memory. And I think that's so liberating to just like, the way that I remember it doesn't have to be 100% correct. Maybe I can be open to new interpretations.
Yes, yes. And, and I like what Paul said about, I guess he got it from the Course of Miracles, about we give the meaning to everything.
That's one of my favorites.
Yeah, so who's to say my meaning was the correct meaning, or, what meaning was I giving to that, before I gave it a new meaning now? Or am I giving it a new meaning now? I don't know.
Well, we can't help but give everything the meaning. That's one of the cool things in the Course in Miracles is it's not like it's a choice. Like I'm going to choose to give this meaning or like you're giving it meaning whether you want to or not. Choosing to not give it meaning is still giving it meaning, right?
Right.
So,
Yeah.
yeah. And I always love when Paul says, take a look at your role here. Your role is giving everything all the meaning it has. So there's kind of there's no objective consensus that everyone gets together and goes, this is the ultimate meaning of this thing, right? It's just whatever you decide it is in the moment, really. Once you see your role in that, you can kind of go, okay, well, do I want to create a hell on earth out of this stuff, or do I want to travel lightly over it?
Which is so funny though, because if you're who is giving the meaning, then it comes to the point like if I have, everything is who is the one giving the meaning.
Yeah. And there's the whole idea of trying to play God, right? Then all of a sudden you go, okay, well, if I'm giving everything the meaning, this is the meaning I want to give. Well, that little drive right there is probably, tied up in selfing and identification and very limited. Yeah. So you're gonna run into some dead ends real quick, which will be helpful.
Yeah, that's a crazy thing about this non-dualist, because there's really no answer. It's like I'm doing this thing with my hand, a circle.
Yes, yes, totally. Yeah.
You can't even put your finger down on one thing because there's the other side of it too, and it's just
Which is okay. So this, I knew I was going to bring this up at some point. I loved your small exchange with Paul on Saturday.
Yeah, but not right.
Because it was so zen, so a quick little circle, a nice little tie up, like you said, that you go. You said something along the lines of, "Well, I thought nothing was real, but you're saying the seeing is real, right?"
Yeah.
And then
my mind jumped in, when that came up during the exchange with somebody else, and my mind gave, "What? Nothing is real, but seeing is real." And then I was trying to see what the seeing was real, wow, the seeing is real, but I thought nothing was real.
Yeah. And then he said something along the lines of, "Well, what's seeing?" And then
he said, nothing is real. I said, nothing. Okay, if nothing is real, but you said seeing is real. And he goes, yeah. But then I said, oh, so seeing is real. And then he goes, yeah, but nothing is seen.
Nothing is seeing, yes.
And then I went, okay, so then nothing is real.
So nothing is real.
Back to nothing is real.
Yeah, back to nothing is real. Yeah, that was such a cool little loop, so quickly. And the fact that you saw, I don't know, the meaning I was giving to that little exchange. You saw the futility, and the mind was trying to make sense, grab it. Yeah. And then he goes, let me take the exact same phrase, nothing is real, show you, the kind of the horses in front of the cart version, instead of seeing it from, the cart being in front of the horse. And then you're just like, okay, yeah, I get it. And that's the thing, is like, whatever gets it. That Paul's the freaking, king of this. Whatever gets it. And eventually, the way I like to say it, and I think Paul says it in similar ways, you see what you're not trying to get it. Yeah. And that's what's instructive. What you're not is never going to get it. It's never going to understand it. It can't fit it into its limited, little box, because it's infinite, right? But that which is infinite, he always says, throwing it over your head to the Buddha, that gets it, and that's always got it in a way. It's never not gotten it.
That's what did it for me too, like with Paul, because even knowing the non-dual genre, I know you'll never get it. I didn't get the part about there's something that's not you that's trying to get it. And so when I heard Paul for the first time, um, then I got it. Like, oh my God, I am already what I'm looking for, but there's something that's obscuring that, you know? And so
Yes.
I was like, oh, I think I got it. That, you know. And then, but the one who thinks they got it is not it, you know.
Exactly.
Like,
But you see the one that thinks it got it, and you know that that's not it. Yes, exactly. You being whatever you want to call it, the light consciousness.
yeah, the no thing.
The no thing.
Yeah.
Totally. Yeah, right on. Okay, cool. So we kind of jumped to the end, but we'll get back to CG. And I'm interested again and again, and I've noticed it's pretty fruitful when I ask this question because it helped. A lot of people never really reflect on it. I didn't reflect on it for a very long time. Of when did you kind of, if you think back, get the first hint that there was something was off? like you're not getting the whole story. You know, you look at your family, you look at schooling, whatever, and you go, I feel like there's something more. I can't quite put my finger on it. Does anything come up for you of maybe the first hint of that?
Well, I think the first time I heard of this teaching, or no, this, whatever this is, non-duality, it was through Eckhart Tolle.
Oh,
And
awesome. Me too, actually.
yeah.
Well, in a way, I mean, it was Alan Watts before that, but Eckhart Tolle, I remember when he said, you are not your thoughts. That was the first time that had ever hit home for me.
Yeah,
Right
that
on.
was huge. And I like the way, you know, it wasn't, he didn't make it religious like it was the, you know, later as I dove into more of what he was talking about, then I was like, oh, this is from the old religion, probably from India, right? Non-dual is from. And but by that time I was already in it, you know, like I grew up in a church where it was like an exclusive, this is the only truth. So growing up, I had this fear of other religions, you know, like that's the devil, that's part of Satan's.
They're gonna brainwash you or steal your soul because you
Exactly.
have the only real answer. I grew up in it too.
Yeah, so you know what I'm talking about, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, but the way he had put it, it made it seem non-religious, and so you know, I was more open to it because it in reality, it's not really a religion. It's just a different way of, you know, just being more aware of this human experience and how we are so caught up in our thoughts and how that works, you know, to where it just creates this self out of you that you start living from. You know, it's incredible to just get that first realization when Eckhart Tolle, he was on Oprah, I think, and that's how
Yeah.
I learned of him. I bought his books, and then the search started, you know, and then certain memories came up about, oh my God, that's right. I've always been seeking this. It's something I'm always, you know, looking for the answer to life. Why are we here? What's going on? And so really it just kind of started up from there.
Right on. So this is, if it's at the time when it first happened, I want to say 08, 09 maybe, was when he put out The Power Now and then The New Earth and then got on Oprah and then kind of blew up to the world. So I'm going to show my age. You don't have to tell me yours if you don't want to. I was just getting out of high school at that time. So I was 17, 18, graduated from high school. And then my dad gave me the book Power of Now. And I remember that hitting so hard that you are not your thoughts.
Yeah.
It was like, oh shit. So that hit in the way that Paul's stuff always hits, of like, it's not new information. It's exposing something you've always known.
Yeah.
Right? You go, of course. Like, yeah, you know, like how did I never think of it like that? Or how did I never say it like that? And Eckhart Tolle was a big launching point for me. So that's cool that you found. Do you remember how you found the book? Did someone give it to you? Did you stumble across it?
Oh no, just from Oprah, you
From
know.
Oprah, okay, right on.
Yeah, 2000 it is. I think it was 2008.
2008 sounds right to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's kind of when I lived in Washington and I had moved down but I had found Eckhart Tolle then, and then I moved down. You know, I had the Power of Now book, and then I found his other book, and yeah. And then when I came down to California, I just, you know, I didn't work. I just gave birth to my second child, and so I was mostly at home, and I would just get on YouTube and just like keep going, you know,
Yeah, yeah.
like what else somebody else had to say. And then I stumbled on Tony Parson, and that's
Yes.
when it was just like, wow, like a whole, like it just took the rug out of, you know, like it was like, wow, wow. It was just amazing. And it was something he said about, you never really sat on a chair, something about sitting on a chair. You think you're sitting on a chair, but you have no clue, you know, like, and then at that moment I was like, sitting on a chair, and like he made it sound like it was like this incredible experience, you know. And I was all like, oh my God, that's so right. And I loved how he talked about how nobody really knows, you know, all this teaching that I've been listening was a way to get to where you are now, and that was pretty. That was, I don't know the word for it, but that was the whole game of the seeking. That was still part of seeking. You're not
Mm-hmm.
really, you know, yeah.
It's
Person.
it's so okay. So I want to say first off, I've been listening to Tony Parson again this week
Yeah.
since your text, and I really love and appreciate his teaching so much. I'm hearing it with new ears. I've overused this metaphor, but I think of like love songs. You hear a love song before you've fallen in love, and it's cool, you like it, but then when you fall in love, it's
Yeah, it makes more sense, right?
yeah. It speaks exactly to your experience, right? When
Yeah.
you're in love. And so I love that with good teachers is, you know, you hear them and then you're kind of like, okay, it's cool. I get that it's kind of pointing to something, and you may come back to it a few years later and go, oh, I had no idea what he's talking about. I see it so much clearer now.
Yes.
Getting back to giving the meaning, I may come back 10 years from now and go, oh, I didn't have a clue 10 years ago, you know, because
Right.
different layers of clarity and things speak to you differently. But so all that is to say, I really have been enjoying listening to Tony Parson again. And I see so I think I already mentioned this. I heard about him from you. I wrote him down in my little notebook, and I went and I've liked him ever since. I see how going from Tony to Paul could be very beneficial.
Yes.
That's something I've been thinking about. I wanted to ask you about was, you know, I know we jumped over a lot of stuff, but because I'm thinking, okay, Eckhart Tolle in '08, and then somewhere along the way you found Tony Parson, and somewhere, because this is 12 years ago now, that would be, and you found Paul like maybe about a year ago. Is that right?
3 years now.
Oh, 3 years. Oh, wow. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Right on. So when did Tony Parson come in that little timeline?
It was, I think, around the same time to
Oh, really?
Eckhart Tolle, yeah,
Oh,
2008.
wow. Right
So
on.
it was all that time, you know, not really getting it, you know, like I'd say, but then I still feel like there's someone here, and, you know, and so, and then, but I would shut everybody down, because everybody down was like, you know, I closed my mind to all other speakers. Tony was the one, I'm gonna, he's got it. Just because, but then somebody who interviewed Tony had mentioned, or who went to his meeting, and somebody else interviewed one of the people who goes to Tony's meeting. He had mentioned Paul, and I'm sure I came across Paul, but Paul sounded too like a way, like there was someone here that could do something about finding non-dual this thing. And so I gave him another shot, and also because I also came into recovery too. That's another thing, you know, that because he talked about this with recovery, and since I was like, oh, I was more open to it then, you know, because I think I had about a year. So it would be 2 years I've known Paul now, because I think I had about a year when I found Paul again. And it was just, you know, at first I was like, he's still talking to someone there. Because I thought Tony he just didn't give any space to the illusionary self.
Yeah. That's so. Getting back to me thinking about going from Tony to Paul. Tony does lay such a great foundation in that he gives no, like you said, no space.
Yeah.
no exceptions. It's like there is no separate self, and I'm like not even gonna hint to the fact that there's a separate self. Yeah.
Yes, I'm not even going to ask a question from coming
And,
from a separate self. You don't exist.
yeah, exactly. And I love all the like only nobody becomes awakened, or only no one can,
Yeah.
which it's
There's
all
no one
really,
here. It's always no one's here.
there's
So
no
when
one here.
somebody appears and asks the question, well, you don't exist. That's right.
Yeah, which of course it's totally very clear and very right to the point. But what Paul, and you alluded to it earlier, what Paul, to me, why he's so valuable, what no one else is doing,
Yeah.
is he's pointing to uh, the thing, the drive that wants to find itself,
Yeah.
Relentingly.
Yeah.
No exceptions on his end, as far as to me, you can boil down Paul's message to one sentence, which is see what you're not from what
Yeah.
you are.
That was the big turning point for me.
For me as
Yeah.
well. Yes.
Turning it around, because before it's denying. And I like the way you said negate, it's negating. It's like first, and the part about letting it land first,
Yes.
Like I was like, oh my God, because I just ignore it or like say no to it. It's kind of almost like the program of AA, you have to admit these things first about yourself before you can let it go. And so, and a lot of what I was doing there was just like, well, I don't want to admit it. I don't want to let it land. It's not me. I know it's the ego, whatever you want to call it, but realizing that I had to let it land and make it as real as it wanted to be was the way out of it.
That's
like,
so
wow.
beautiful. Yeah, that's so beautiful, because now what I'm seeing in what you're just explaining, we'll say the Tony Parson exclusion period of your life, was you were saying there is no self, but subtly you were saying that as a self, identified as a self. Yes, and in a certain way, something had to get over and past that to then see that also as a claiming of self. Yes, exactly. And then what's left, right? In the Paul way, you're left to your own devices. You see they're not yours. Yeah, and then you said too, letting it land, which I think is another beautiful, little thing that Paul says that I almost bring it up every podcast, but I can't help it. For me, because it was sort of a unique teaching to me, I hold on to it. I used to do martial arts, and I had been like knocked out cold a couple of times where the lights go out, right?
Really?
And, yeah. It's funny. The one that hit the hardest, I got kicked in the head and knocked out, and I don't even remember the impact. I remember like the moment before, and then I remember laying on the ground and coming back to. And so I told Paul one time after a meeting at dinner, I go, I feel like you're knocking me out. Like, again and again, like the lights go out, and then the lights come back on, right? And he said, yeah, when you get knocked out, just stay knocked out. Which I think is another way of saying let it land. And then the kind of little twist that came in later was, yes, the lights are going to come back on, but you aren't lost in that anymore. You see the knockout and the coming back to as, in a way, ultimately not you. You're that which is aware of the whole process, and the getting knocked out is a real good hint of, that's a real good clue to what you are, right? We get it every night. I love another guy comes up all the time, Ram Dass. You ever heard of Ram Dass? He wrote Be Here Now. He's done some stuff with that Eckhart Tolle. Yeah. So he used to say, oh man, I just had it and I lost it. He used to say, we were talking about getting knocked out. Oh, he goes, God knew that we were going to be afraid of dying, so he lets us practice every night.
Oh,
right? Because you fall asleep, you go into deep, dreamless sleep. Nobody's there.
Yes.
Right? And we're so terrified of that place, seemingly for the action figure, but you get to practice every single night. So,
right?
Yeah.
Exactly. Wow. That's a good one.
All those came up for me when you were talking about letting it land. Because it's one of those things that when it's obvious, and before it is, you're utterly convinced and stuck in the problem.
Yeah, yeah. And and it didn't happen like slowly, like each day seemingly it's becoming more and more uh a reality for me, I guess you could say. It's funny to talk about it with words. But like a few, maybe last week, with the AA program, I had an epiphany of something, and it's not something that was like pertaining to what you were saying. It wasn't something new, but I think there was like a click, maybe you could say, like how, like, um, yeah, click on like, wow, I've been playing God, I have,
Mm-hmm.
and like just realizing that part of me and that I was human. Like all this time, I've been thinking I'm God and I need to be, you know what I mean? It's such
Totally.
a and I was like, fuck, but I'm just human. Like, and it just like took all that pressure away of just being the judge and the juror and everything, about myself. Like
Oh my
I
God.
shouldn't feel this way. Like when I set up these Zoom meetings for my fellowship, and then I was all like, everyone was thanking me, and I was like, oh, my head was getting too big, and I was like, oh, I don't want to, I want to be humble. I don't want to feel this good feelings that were coming up about this thing I did, and it was just putting all this stuff on me where I felt so terrible. And then that's when the epiphany kind of happened. You know what? It's okay. This stuff is going to keep coming up, these feelings of insecurity, that I'm going to think I'm so all that sometimes, and sometimes I'm going to think I'm this shit, I'm like
Yeah.
lower than dirt, it's just, and it's part of what I've learned in AA too, our character defects, we call it. And that's just part of being human. And that's just part of having this human experience. And here I was trying to fix that when it wasn't really my job. We learned that in AA too, is that we are not God, and that, we turn this stuff over to a higher power.
Yeah.
And so I love that I can have that and the other part, the non-dual. It just works so well in my life where whatever comes up, it's not me, and it's not, and that's still claiming can still happen, and I can get lost in that sometimes, but that goes too. These too shall pass, and I have all
Yeah.
these tools for the action figure.
Of course. Yes.
Sound
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
all of,
As do I. Yeah. Mantras, whatever, little
yeah,
reminders. I like that. This too shall pass is a huge one for me and my whole family.
yeah,
We say that one all the time.
yeah, yeah. And so it's great that I can use those, like I can use those tools. I'm not, sometimes if I need those tools as an action figure,
Hell
I
yeah.
can use those. Yeah, it
Yeah.
doesn't mean that now I'm believing I'm myself. And it's just all this stupid games in my mind, like to
Totally.
play.
Yeah. And we all play our own version of those games for sure. And it is always as as obvious as the seeming moment of awakening when you see, you
Yeah,
know,
yeah,
that you are no thing, as obvious as everything feels after that. There's a whole lot more obvious shit that keeps popping up, at least in my experience, right? Reporting is you go, okay, I've got it all figured out. And that means this, and that. And then you go, and like you said, I think the biggest epiphany that seems to keep rolling through is the seeing where you're playing God again. Like, oh,
yeah,
I was so convinced I was not playing God. I was so convinced that I was giving it up to the higher power, but
yeah,
subtly I
yeah.
did think I was that higher power.
Yes,
And I
yes,
was judging the shit out of myself for doing it wrong.
right. And it's brilliant, like how Paul does it. Self can get out of self. Just
Yeah.
realizing that sometimes
Yeah.
can just get me out of self.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of your only hope, right? Is to
Yeah,
see the futility in it.
exactly.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally cool. When you were talking about mantras, like this too shall pass, I was thinking of another one I'll say, which can be helpful, is there are no mistakes.
Yeah.
And it's a relative thing. Saying there are no mistakes comes more from the ultimate. Obviously, you can mess up, and I do, and I apologize when I do. You know what I mean? I'm not sitting there going like, no, this is all meant to be, but but just a good quick reminder of like, there's there's no accidents, there's no mistakes. Um, uh, Eckhart Tolle has a thing. I had it written on my wall for a while that everything that happens is for the growth and evolution of your soul, or something like that. That's another good little reminder too. Like,
Great. Yeah.
you know, all the things that seem wrong at the time, they are there for a reason. There are lessons to be learned from them, you know, and that can create a lot of traveling lighter for
Yeah,
me personally.
totally.
You know.
Yeah, yeah. That's a good one.
Well, I'm so glad to hear that yeah, just how much this is helping. Yeah,
Yeah.
I really, again and again, like I'm a enthusiast of Paul Hederman, and you know, and non-duality in general and all this stuff in general, but it always just touches my heart to see the message land in a way that I talk about that, you know, Keith, right, from the talks. He
Yeah.
comes, yeah, he's been my phone buddy through the pandemic, so we talk to each other a lot, and half the time it's about Paul.
Yeah.
And one of the things that we've kind of come to is this, the way that I frame it, I like it, is saying it's the minimum effective dose, right? That Paul doesn't give you like, sit and meditate for, you know, this many hours and read these many books and yada, yada, yada. It's like you sit there, you listen to him ramble for an hour, and then that's enough of a dose to what's the ultimate goal? You travel lighter through the dreaming, right? And he goes again and again, Tony Parsons on this same road too, of like, you're not going to become enlightened. You, the action figure, cannot become it. You are it. You're not going to become a chariot to the gods, like you were saying. You know, you judge the hell out of yourself. I'm the shit, or I'm a piece of shit for thinking I'm the shit, and all that. You know what I mean? Which we're creating our own suffering. We're creating our own hell. So something like the message is a nice minimum effective dose of one little pill that through time helps you to travel lighter. And what more do you want once you've got that?
Yeah, yeah.
You know?
And well, Paul would say, we're not creating the shit. You know, I like that too. That just like, whoa, yes. Nice separation from what's real and what's not, you know, when he said that. You're not the one doing, because sometimes you just get caught right into it. You believing the story, and you're the story, you know? You're the hell. And that's where hell lives, I think. But I'm really grateful for like being in the program too, and having friends who are in the program, because they talk about stuff that goes on in there, and it just like highlights what's going on, you know, like, oh, but I try to tell them, but yeah, that's our minds for you, like making it not totally. You, it's not you. I don't go and tell them then, but I just say, oh yeah.
Totally.
Say, well, that's how our minds work, you know. It's all out to get us most of the time, you know.
Yeah, and that's why. So I haven't gone through the AA program, but I've gotten so much of it through Paul, and I see like the songs and having the sangha is kind of the AA that I need. You know, this action figure, luckily, you know, doesn't have an addiction to any substance. I mean, besides caffeine. Coffee, I'm pretty bad, but nothing that's too damaging. But it definitely has addiction to a lot of mental suffering, or it has seemingly had a lot of addiction to that. So having Paul there as a reminder, and then also having the Sangha, having conversations with other people, so that, like you said, you can see again and again, you're not terminally unique. You're not special. These thoughts aren't just yours, right? All that claiming, all the convincing that the thoughts have. When you sit for coffee after a talk, and every single person brings up the same thoughts that have been coming up for you for the past couple of years, you go, oh, I'm not special. There's nothing wrong with me. This is the manufacturing of self that goes on in all of us.
Yeah, and that's what I like Paul saying, you know, seeing what you're not. I had a year of sobriety before I found him, before I found Paul. And wow, after hearing Paul and coming to a few of his talks, going back and working on the steps of the sponsee, I was laughing my ass off, you know, because it was like, oh my God, I saw it for what it was. And it's right in the book, you know, in our AA book. It's like, wow, if you just had this switch of how to look at it, you would see he's trying to tell you all these things manifested by self is what self is doing. It's not you. You're just being identified with it, you know, and trying not to trying to like with I told my sponsee. I actually brought it to a talk to Paul's talk.
Yeah, I think I remember. Yeah.
Yeah. You remember?
Your
Yeah.
your younger sister.
No. Thank you for that. No, my daughter.
I know. A few people said she was your daughter. I was like, no way. What'd she have her?
I was like, oh my God. But thank you for the sister comment.
Yeah.
But yeah, and she really got it. We were so excited that night on the drive back to Sonoma, just
Oh,
going
awesome. I'm
round and
glad to
round
hear
in
that.
circles of what, we were understanding about the message and just getting a kick out of it. It was lovely, brilliant.
Yeah, right on.
But it's so
I love
easy to
hearing
fall
stuff like that.
right back into like, forgetting what the message, because once you get caught up in self again, you're the self.
Oh yeah. And you're utterly convinced and there's no
Yeah,
talking you out of it. Yeah,
yeah,
the once the blinders are on, the
yeah,
blinders are on. Yeah.
yeah,
And I've noticed so far, seemingly that more and more I recognize when the blinders go up.
yes.
You know what I mean? And I don't catch it every time in the story of time, but I notice them come up more and more. And then the story comes in too of like, holy shit, the blinders were up for like years at a time. and I was convinced I was seeing everything as clear as day. It was everyone else's fault. Everyone else was fucked up. They all had their blinders on, but I'm seeing shit right. It's so funny, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah. I think
That process still happens, but it just kind of like it comes and goes
yes,
quicker for me.
yes, yes.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally.
I'm sure. Have you heard of Kundalini? I'm sure you've come across the idea of Kundalini energy stuff.
Oh yeah, I've heard about it. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
So I love that Paul doesn't emphasize that. A lot of teachers do too. I seemingly have some crazy Kundalini stuff too every now and then.
yeah.
And it's been a similar thing in that the first couple of times energy stuff would flare up, I would be like, I'm having a panic attack. I know I'm going to die. I like a lot of your whole world kind of shakes in a way. And that too, I've noticed over time, that'll flare up and go back down within like a breath.
Wow.
So just again another example of like traveling lighter, and it's not that it goes away completely,
Yeah.
but like Paul says things like, but the breath of it loses air.
Yeah.
It doesn't have the oomph that it used to have.
Nothing is holding it, right?
Yeah.
Nothing grabbing it. You're letting it come up,
Yeah.
not you're letting it, but language. It's coming
It's allowed
up
to come up and
it's coming and going as it pleases, kind of thing, I guess.
Yeah, and that's what I just again and again that to me, I'm infinitely thankful to have found Paul,
Yeah.
and I feel the compassion for and I feel so passionate about when I see it landing with other people.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because so like Nick, the action figure, knew something was working, but I couldn't put my finger on it, and it's just cool to again and again see, you don't have to put your finger on it. You don't have to understand it. Here's the evidence. Look, it created all this. It creates miracles in people's lives.
Yeah. Amazing.
Yeah. Which is
It's
so
really
cool.
amazing, right? I mean, thank God. I would say it's a God shot. And then when I think back to how it all just hits, like, wow, it's like, and because Paul does talk about this, things get synchronized. And we talk about it a lot in AA too, about the synchronicity of things, It's just, wow, it's mind blowing to me. I'm always blown away. Not even people who don't know this message, just being in the program and things just working out and just, it's just amazing. I'm always so grateful for both, for Paul and for the AA program, because I learned, I had this dry drunk period because I was giving birth to my children, but I wasn't in AA. And then I think a year, and it was because of this message that I thought that I could drink again. I say, well, if nobody's here, alcoholic, I can drink, I'll be conscious this time. I can do it consciously,
Yeah. It's so convincing, isn't it?
It was so convincing. I drank consciously that day, that first time, and the following week, The following weekend, I was unconscious on the floor. And I was back in the rut. I mean, it took me another, wow, when did I come into the, 3 years ago. So it took me, so 2008. Um, wow, it took me a few years,
Yeah.
before I find, because I was still listening to Tony Parsons and still trying to fucking drink, like a normal person. And wow. And it was just like, I feel like how Paul said, a God shot, because I could have been caught up in that forever.
And so many people do. In fact, statistically, looking at numbers, you're the outlier.
Right?
It's rare for people to so I work with a lot of older men in construction world, and it's normally a medical procedure that, you know what I mean? It's a near-death experience or medical procedure that stops them, or some of them don't. Some of them drink all the way until their last day,
Yeah.
and that little thing that you're saying, surprised that it had another, 8 years of breath left in it.
Yeah.
It has 80 years of breath left for a lot of action figures. You know what I mean?
Wow.
So it's hallelujah that it was able to play out.
Yeah.
The futility of it was able to play out, in a way.
Hallelujah, that something put a stop to it.
Yeah.
I definitely feel like it was a God shot, because I knew of AA before. When I was 19, I was first introduced to it, and I was like, oh, no, the God thing, the same story. It's not a new story, not unique, but
Yeah.
it was coming into the program, and then hearing Paul, and Paul was talking about, how did these people get my thoughts? And that's
Yes.
exactly what happened to me. I thought I was losing my mind, because every time I go to a meeting, someone would talk about what was going through my head, and I'd be like blown away, like, what the fuck? Who am I? What is this? I really lost who I was. It was a relief in the beginning, but later it was kind of scary, because I'm like,
Definitely.
wow. And then also the way I work mentally was always to put myself down. Like, all this time you thought you were special, you were just, you were a nobody, you don't even have your own thoughts. Like that, use that
Oh,
against
yeah.
me.
Of course.
Like, you're a dumb asshole. Just like, oh God, it's torture, and so
Yeah.
just,
Again, it's so funny seeing it from the outside, right?
yeah.
Hindsight's 2020, that it was a thought that was telling you that you were a piece of shit for not having your own thoughts.
It, and I was buying it, and I thought it was me, and it was hell. Oh my
Yeah.
God. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I think that's another thing that, I don't know. I can't quite put my finger on it, but why Paul has so much credibility to me
Yeah.
is that I kind of only want to hear teachers that have really been to like hell and back. 'Cause you can 100% be to hell and back in this,
Yeah.
seeming dreaming in this lifetime, because it's when he reports, this is unconditional. No conditions it's always available at all times with no conditions required to meet it, except for the ones you make up, right? When he says that, I go like, fuck, he's literally been to hell and back probably in this life on this action figure. And he's reporting, hey, there's no conditions that need to be met.
Yeah.
No matter what side of it you're on, it's available right here and right now, and that to me, I don't want any solution that's not available right now. If there's something that needs to be done, if there's requirements, rules that are written by somebody, some religion, some whatever, I can see that is valuable. It's not valuable to me right now where I'm at.
Yeah, and that's why I like Paul too, because he didn't have a way to get to this, it was just seeing what you're not, which made sense. Like, oh my God. Wow, I love the way he put it. And he is right. I think he is the only one who does that, where, there's no way for you to get to it, but because you're already it, of course. But there is a seeing of what you're not. So it sounds like a process, but it's not. It's more like a switcheroo, like he likes to say.
Yeah.
Bitch slap.
Yeah, and the thing that's not a process about it is that it takes no time at all.
Yeah.
Any kind of process would take time, right?
Yeah.
And to see what you're not, you can see it. You only actually can see it from timelessness, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. Right here, right now,
Mm.
everything that he gets into all the cool Zen stuff, like whatever can be seen can't be seen, whatever can be observed can't be observing,
Yeah.
and that's a huge one, man. Like anything that pops up and masquerades and pretends it's you,
Yeah. Yeah.
the very fact that you're seeing it means it can't be you.
Right.
Like
You're
that's
the one seeing
yes,
it.
yes,
Yeah.
right. And so, yeah, if it is a process, it's the cleanest, clearest, down to the bare bones process there is.
Right.
And yeah, and I can personally report it creates a whole lot of traveling later.
Yeah. I also like how he doesn't tell you what it's like because
Yeah,
you
he
will
always
find
says you'll
out
find out.
kind of
Yeah.
thing. Yeah. Which is, yeah, because nobody can really say what it is or what it's like to be. Yeah. You know.
Yeah, because as soon as someone starts explaining what it's like, it's creating an object that is now something separate that you're seeing in your mind and your imagination, and you believe that's going to be it. It's already separating
Mhm.
you, right, from what the experience of yourself is going to be. If you, I bring it up every podcast, but I can't help it. Have you ever heard of any Headless Way stuff?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes. Yes.
right
I
on.
heard that on your podcast with Mike, and I was
Right
like,
on.
oh yeah, and you guys are trying to think of his name. Douglas
Douglas
Harding at
Harding.
the
Yeah.
time. I'm like, yeah, yeah, yeah.
And then the other name, the student of Douglas Harding is Richard Lang.
Richard Lane,
I
yeah.
know. I forgot it twice last week, but he has some stuff. And so Headless Way stuff is really, to me, if you want a process or experiment, you want to see your true face,
Yeah.
look for your head right now.
Yes, I love
That,
that. I love
that
that. I used to use that too a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a huge one for me. It's still, again, that's traveling through time. I can't help but do it multiple times a day just because of it's so cool and just the relief it gives too. Like something about like, as soon as you look for your own head, you see nothing's there. You go in some way, all of your problems are based around the idea that you are this like face that
Yeah.
interfaces with the world, you
Fine.
know? Yeah, and the body, the identification with the body and everything. And the body has its problems,
Mm.
with other bodies and other this and that. And as soon as you like, okay, who is this one that has all these problems? And you go to look for it,
Yeah.
you see there's nothing there. It creates a shitload of relief,
Yeah. Totally.
pretty reliably
Yeah. Yeah.
for me at least. Yeah.
And I love the picture, especially if you're like looking at a nice landscape. I like to take, then I like, oh my God, because he makes it say, that is who you are. You're looking at in that way, you're looking at yourself and
Mm-hmm.
that whole view of life. It's amazing.
Yeah, right on. That's so cool. I'm so glad you came across that too
Yeah.
over your times. Yeah.
I was thinking, oh, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Getting way back when you were talking about finding a Cartoli, and then the modern story of seeking is so different than I guess it used to be. Like in the 60s or 70s, the seeking was most people did some sort of psychedelic drug,
Yeah.
almost everybody, and then they start looking into this stuff, and then they go, oh, the answer's in India, and then they went to India and they found out. Right.
In India, I love that. Yeah.
That's pretty reliably the stories for the seekers of those generations. And the seekers of our generation with YouTube is like, you just go to the screen and you start typing. I kind of heard this thing called non-duality. Let me try that. And then you just watch it and it's the same drive, but it's so simplified. You can do it all from the comfort of your chair. Right. And I remember, years of believing it was just in the next video, and I had my reliable go-to guy was Alan Watts. For Alan Watts?
Yes.
Yeah. If you've been on YouTube, you can't miss him.
Yeah.
He's all over the place. But he was my reliable go-to guy that I knew he wasn't going to give me. That's funny. I've never thought of it this way. I knew he wasn't going to give me the answer, but maybe in kind of that Paul way, it would kind of create some traveling later. Just a little reminder. He was very good at big picture stuff, like metaphors for like the whole universe is just one crashing wave, and then it gets pulled out, and then it goes again, cyclical stuff. And so he was always really good for that. And then I always had this feeling, oh, there's somebody out there, that's gonna give it to me, that's gonna give me the answer. And going one video to the next, and looking back, it at times got like obsessive, like to really believe a lot of hours of thinking, okay, is it here? Is it here? And so again, getting back to the, we'll say maybe like the 6th and 7th steps in AA, or the love song and hearing it again when you're in love. I would go back and find people that I had dismissed, and then hear so much truth in their message that I missed the first time. And I was like, oh, it wasn't ever them. Any judgment I have of like, this is a good teacher, that's a good teacher, it's all coming from the meaning I'm giving it, right? So and just sort of in a way, the system got exhausted, and it was just kind of open to hear things in a new way. Really. And that was when Paul came in. I've talked to you about this before. I think you said you had a similar experience of like, I don't know what he's saying, but I know something's true in what he's saying. So all those things just came up for me. Go ahead.
The thing that came up when you were talking was the seeking. It didn't really just start with coming to find Eckhart Tolle, but just realizing, after hearing all these speakers, and especially Tony Parsons, going back and in my memory and remembering, yes, I've been always seeking something, even whether it's in drugs. Like I remember I did some math at one time, and I was tripping on the dictionary, looking for answers in there, and even thinking back to when I was a kid, and my religious upbringing, I don't think I really searched so much during that time because I had the answer, I did believe in God. But after I left the church, then it's when I was really thinking, what is the meaning of all this? And why are we here? And if there really was no God like I had grown up to believe, who had all these rules and conditions, then why are we here and what? And then that's kind of where this all started for me,
Yeah. I know it's funny because again, getting back to Paul talks about self trying to get out of self. And then I like that he doesn't just keep it to alcoholism. He goes, I've been trying to do it since I was 6 years old, right? Doing it with science fiction books, doing it with whatever. And then it became more extreme with drugs. And and so I always appreciate that seeing that seeking that drive can manifest in a million different ways, but it's the same drive, which is, it's kind of a Buddhist-y thing too, of like the cause of suffering, right? Right. There is kind of just one cause of suffering, and different translations, some call it attachment, right? Attachment and aversion or whatever, but there's kind of that one cause, and you get a sense of, you can't ever quite put the perfect word on it, but you get a sense of that restlessness, discontent, that seeking, and then you see the 10,000 ways it manifests, self trying to get out of self. And then once that kind of reveals itself, you see it come up so much more easily instead of getting fooled and tricked the millions of times it pops up.
That's why I'm so grateful for Paul, because even though I do like how Tony puts it of, this is it, this is what I've always been looking for. I didn't feel like it. You know what I mean? I couldn't see it. I wanted to believe it, and I thought I believed it, but I just didn't feel it, I guess. I still felt separate. I didn't feel like this was it. So Paul really changed it, changed it for me, where it's like, oh my God, I get it. I think I got it.
Or I like to say, as soon as you said that, I reminded me, I like to say, oh, I can't get it. That's
that's me getting it.
Getting it is realizing you can't get it. You are it. And the seeing of what you're not. Right on. This is so much fun. I was thinking again of our drive to the coffee house. Another thing that made me think, oh, I got to do a podcast with you, was you say you put on Paul, because I do this too, just kind of all the time, like background music.
Yeah, in my ears as I'm working, whatever I'm doing. Yeah,
Yeah, doing dishes or
doing
like
dishes.
whatever. Right
Yeah,
on.
yeah,
Yeah, and that's funny because I thought again, how did these people get my thoughts? I thought I was the only one that like I'll listen to. The last talk he gave that wasn't over Zoom that he did in his backyard.
yeah, yeah,
I'm like at least 10 listens into that one
yeah.
because it just
Okay.
creates a lot of ease in traveling lighter. Like, I get it. Obviously, I'm not hearing anything new, but in some ways you do. Yeah,
Yeah.
you go, oh, I missed that the first time around, and that's landing really, really coolly right now. But that's cool that I'm not the only fanatic out there. That's
Yeah, I think there's a lot of us out there.
yeah,
I
yeah.
like the one from Australia with the red curtains in the back. That's the one like that I've been, and I love that there's so many choices. Oh, I'll try this one this today.
Oh yeah,
And I love also that it doesn't mean that because I'm seeking something, I just feel good when I'm like listening to it. It's
yeah.
not like I want it. It's like my new addiction, I
Yeah,
guess.
I agree. I have the same thing. And then things come up of like, oh, am I in seeking, am I
Yeah,
looking for something? Yeah, right. Of course that shit's gonna come up, right? And just again and again, for me personally, I could just go like, look, I could be playing a game on my phone. I
yeah,
could pick your poison. This is what feels good. I don't have to make it anything more or anything less than that.
yeah. It's not you who's made. It's the mind.
It's the
It's
mind.
our finite mind that loves to fuck with us. Yeah,
Of course.
yeah. I love that. Yeah,
Right on. Cool.
yeah.
Okay. Well, any other things you wanted to bring up?
No, I don't think
Question.
so.
That
Yeah,
was that was really fun.
yeah.
Um,
For me too. Thank you so
I,
much.
I appreciate you wanted to do this, and if we ever get out of quarantine,
Mhm.
maybe we could do one in person.
Yeah, that'd
That
be
would be fun.
awesome.
Yeah, it's really cool. I'm
I just
surprised at
love
how.
talking about this, even though sometimes they're like, "Oh, shut up, Sena! You don't know what you're talking about." Just being round and round in circles. I lose
Yeah,
the words in mid sentence. So I'm like, ah,
that's what's so fun about it, right?
I lose my point. Like, oh,
Yeah,
I'm trying to make a point. I don't know.
yeah. That's what I love again and again is so the I bring it up all the time on this podcast, but talking about why I love it is that there's something about sharing with someone else that
Yeah,
you it's like we're building a structure together, right? And you have my buddy Patrick brought this up, which I like, Lego blocks. You have some Lego blocks and I have some Lego blocks, but together we can build something that's cooler than we could build on our own,
yeah,
right? And that's what's really fun about it for me
yeah,
is uh I just get off on just sharing and just, uncovering new things together and not new things, but new ways of looking at the same thing, maybe,
yeah.
would
It
be
makes it more real for me, like the realization, like, oh my God, this is it. There's really no point to any of this.
yes.
Talking about there's no point to anything is hilarious, right?
Yeah. We can laugh at all the times we're trying to make a point or believe that
Yeah,
there was a point. Yeah. And everything points right back to here we are.
yeah. It just makes it more real for me for some reason. Yeah,
Yeah.
really love it. And,
I do
yeah,
too. And I'm glad that we found each other and we can do this.
yeah, me too.
Right
Yay.
on. Cool. Okay. Well, I'm gonna stop recording. We can,
Okay.
we can keep talking if you want to, but that was lots of fun, and we'll do it again sometime.
Yeah.
Right on.
Thank
Okay, I'm gonna stop.
you.
Boom. That was